Hey everyone, Matt from Stronger Personal Training here. So a little bit of a different video today. Today we're going to go through a bit more training theory as opposed to application stuff you're going to use on the floor. So this points we're going to boil down today are going to be Hey everyone, Matt from Stronger Personal Training here. So today we're going to be going through a little bit more training theory based stuff as opposed to the application and technique drills that we go through on the floor. So a lot of this will help you with your program design. Today specifically we're covering whether you should be using dumbbells or barbells for your powerlifting accessory work. So let's get started. We've got two main things that we're going to try to take a look at with your powerlifting accessory work, and it's going to help you pick whether dumbbells or barbells are a better choice for you. First one being how much time you have available to you, and then second one being what your training goals are outside of barbell lifting, or what your training goals are with your accessory work in the first place. So what's the purpose of even doing it, right? So training time, pretty simple one here. If you have a lot of free time to work into your training and you have 3 hours to train and it takes you an hour and a half to do your barbell main work in your session, do less specific stuff. You can get away with having a bit more total volume, even if the the effectiveness of each exercise might be a little lower. You can get a bit more nitpicky with each exercise. So for example, let's say you have we'll say 2-hour session. It's a bit more reasonable, but a 2-hour session and you've got two main lifts, and those two lifts take you something to the tune of about 75 minutes to do, right? So you've got 45 minutes left over in your session to cover your squat and bench accessory work, right? So we have, let's say we want to cover a little bit of extra quads for your squat, and we'll kind of want to cover more shoulders and tricep based exercises for your bench, and a little bit of core stuff for injury prevention and just building your brace over time, right? 45 minutes is a lot of time. You can pick front squat, split squat, high bar squat, or some variation of them, right? Similarly, with your bench press training, you could pick a bench press variant, right? Close grip bench, dips, something like that, where it's a little closer to. Or if you're trying to train a little bit higher volume, you could pick something more like a dumbbell bench press that allows you to use higher reps without potentially overloading yourself, or overworking yourself, I should say, where you might dig a hole that's a little bit too deep, right? It might take a little bit extra time to do it because of the increased volume you're working with, but you can afford to have a little bit more variation, because 3 sets of barbell bench press is going to build your bench press more than 3 sets of dumbbell bench press would, but you could do more dumbbell bench press if you have extra time, right? Similarly, if you're restricted on time, right, you probably want to get a little bit more specific to what your accessory work goals are. So if your goals with accessory work are injury prevention, let's say you know with your 70 minutes, 75 minutes of main work that you can make progress with your barbell stuff, and you want to make sure that you can keep making progress, not get injured, and try to mitigate a lot of those injuries we see in powerlifting, maybe the 45 minutes is spent where half of that time is spent more towards injury prevention. So stuff like single leg deadlifts, glute bridges, side planks, a lot of those muscles that just get neglected with regular powerlifting training. Something to consider, right? And then one last thing you'd want to cover within that shorter time frame. So let's say you had 75 minutes of main work, but it's an hour and a half session, so you got 15 minutes, right? If you need extra volume to go through to make progress on your main work, you're going to barbell stuff. That's going to give you the best bang for your buck. It's going to give you the most result per rep that you're doing effectively. On the other hand, like I mentioned earlier, if you have enough volume in your initial 75 minutes and you've got 15 minutes left, those injury prevention moves are probably going to be a little bit better, even if you can't load them as hard, because the point of injury prevention stuff is cleaning up movement patterns and just correcting and preventing muscle imbalances, as opposed to pure overload like you might see with powerlifting work, right? Then the second piece that we want to try to take a look at, and we'll subdivide this into 3 categories here, but second piece we want to look at with your powerlifting accessory work to make sure dumbbells or barbells might be a better choice for you, or which one is best, is taking a look at your goals of the accessory work itself, right? So 3 main categories we'll look at. We've got your general hypertrophy, right? So just get bigger muscles to be stronger over time. We have your supplemental work volume, meaning you're just trying to add workload to your current workout to drive progress, and the final is injury prevention. We've touched on all three of these a little bit, but we'll try to elaborate on each of them, right? So if your goal is hypertrophy and you're just trying to simply grow your muscles, so you have a bigger platform to work from as you work through strength and peaking phases in your powerlifting training program, working in probably a little bit of both is going to be a good idea. Generally speaking, you'll hit a threshold of fatigue that the amount of weight you have to use on a barbell movement ends up being really low, or your technique gets compromised much sooner than you'll hit an absolute threshold for what you can train effectively. So quite often what we'll see is we'll try to put a lot or as much barbell training work as we can into a powerlifter's hypertrophy program. And then when there's that fatigue point, we'll supplement the remainder. So let's say we had 10 sets of quads we were trying to do in a workout, and we know that the lifter is good for 6 or 7 on barbell squats and front squats. We want to make up those additional 3 with something like a split squat or a goblet squat or something more dumbbell oriented. Lets us hit the target muscles without compromising on safety and technique, right? Second piece we'd want to look at is supplemental training volume. So if you have, as I mentioned earlier, if you have enough training volume in your main work to drive progress, this doesn't really apply to you. It doesn't matter. But let's say you need additional work past your 4 to 6 sets of barbell squats you're going to do, as an example. But 4 to 6 sets of barbell squats you're going to do at the start of your training program in that initial main work portion of the workout. And you need 10 sets of squats in your workout in order to get your weekly volumes up to where you're progressing and increasing your PRs over time. Barbell. Dumbbell's not really a question here. It's not going to drive progress the same as barbells will. If you're trying to grow your big 3, keep it as specific as you can, and only when you hit those fatigue levels where you can't keep good technique or certain muscles fatigue faster than others is where you'd want to look at dumbbells. But barbells first if you're trying to drive progress and get supplemental work volume. And last piece is injury prevention. So this is one where there's a little bit of a caveat with it. A lot of people think that doing a single leg glute bridge or a one leg deadlift or hamstring curls or reverse hypers even, I see that one thrown around a lot actually, will somehow magically prevent you from getting injury. And while they'll work muscles that might not get worked, assuming the technique is good with those, right? But assuming they work muscles that might not get worked with powerlifting training and help iron out or prevent muscle imbalances, right? If you don't have good technique in the first place with your barbell lifts, it doesn't matter. I don't care what accessory work you do if your technique looks like crap, right? Prevention is the best medicine with this stuff. Learn to do your big 3 properly first before trying to find exercises that are going to fix or prevent problems that you're making for yourself. Take away the problems in the first place and you'll have a way easier time. It's a lot more time efficient as well because you're not spending a bunch of time on random exercises. Instead, you're keeping everything pretty specific, and that's what's going to drive your progress, right? Is barbell training like we talked about earlier. Those are kind of the main points I wanted to outline on how you'd pick between dumbbell or barbell for your accessory work. In a nutshell, if you're short on time, keep it specific to what your accessory work goals are. And then within the goals of the accessory work, you want to make sure that you're driving most of your progress with your barbell work like you would with training. For general hypertrophy, the answer is kind of somewhere down the middle, a little bit of both, right? And then injury prevention, dumbbells. They let you load unilaterally, they let you load in a lot more planes of motion than you would with a barbell. And that in turn helps with just reducing muscle imbalances we see in powerlifting by training muscles and planes of movement that you wouldn't otherwise be able to train with a barbell or can't practically train with a barbell. Thanks. We'll see you next week. One last thing I want to add is we've got a group called Starting Powerlifting right now. It's a great Facebook group of like-minded powerlifters, people who are always trying to learn, improve their technique, or even just help out the community and help out younger lifters who are looking to improve their technique or learn how to program for themselves, anything really powerlifting related.